We are excited about the elaboration room.
I am excited about this.
Welcome to the Elaboration Room with Reverend Yo and Reverend Harris.
You know, I know people get tired of seeing me laugh. You're opening, you're doing it.
Good evening, morning, whatever time you're watching this. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Elaboration Room with two sisters of one. We are so glad you joined us once again in the Elaboration Room. Yes. So what we want to talk about real quick before we jump into the topic that we're talking about is both of us, well, let me speak for me because I can't speak for her. I've had a discipline problem with trying to stay on schedule to get things done because my schedule has been hectic. So I've been a little bit off my rocker. As you can see, when we started the show once again, I wasn't ready. But tonight, that's what we're going to talk about.
And what does Reverend Harris always say? Be ready so you don't have to get ready.
Yeah, but she wasn't ready either when it's time for her to throw the ball. The only reason why she's always ready because she controls everything. But anyway, tonight what we want to talk about is what we want you to think about is what comes to mind when you hear the word discipline.
Yes.
What comes to mind when you hear that word? It's really, everybody can have a different feeling of what that means. It can mean strict rules, it can mean correction, or maybe, even a negative feeling or a past experience or something. It can mean just about anything when you hear that word. But for many, it is often misunderstood as well. So we're going to be talking about that tonight. Because we want to take a look at it from not only the world's point of view of it, but also from the biblical perspective of that word discipline. Because God's words says a lot about discipline, and it is very important to have some type of discipline in our spiritual growth, in our daily living, and certain things that we do. So when we're looking at this word tonight, discipline, many of us look at it more so as a correction type, and God does correct us too when we do certain things, so it can go that way as well. But tonight, sister's gonna jump off with it, so I'm gonna toss the ball over to her.
You know, I always tell her this is just a sidebar before we get started. When she starts, she usually goes in, and to me, that's starting and kicking it off because she's already giving you a bit of context to flow with, which is fine with me, but I will pick up. I will go ahead and pick up. I love her so much. I just love Reverend Yo.
I love you too.
So anyway, but when we are talking about discipline, I know for me, the first thing that I usually think about as being a former teacher was how I would run my classroom, what effective things I used to discipline the children in my classroom. And then I thought about how I raised my sons, what I used to discipline them. But for a lot of us, when we just hear the word discipline, if you're old school, you thought about spankings, and did you get spankings or anything like that? That you did. Oh, that's right. You were the perfect child. I think we had this conversation on a different episode that she never got a spanking. But yes, I did get a spanking, or one or two, maybe three. But and I think that that's what this current generation is talking about, thinking about when they think about trauma and the growing up, and what they saw as trauma was in the way they were disciplined. If they did get a spanking, whether it was by a belt or whatever, I did not receive spankings from various objects such as that, but I was disciplined. And it's not so much so that in my mind, I feel like I was traumatized, because I'm trying to think how to say this in such a politically correct way. But I know that the way that I was disciplined, maybe I did not do that for my sons, that my form of disciplining when it came to my children was more of a level thing, that we would always talk things out, and they had, time to go and think about what they were doing or what they had done wrong. And one son, just the mere thought that if I was upset with him, that was enough discipline for him, that the behavior would be corrected. He would correct it upon himself. And when I think about, I'm all over the place, you guys, because right now my mind is not being very disciplined for me. But when I think about this from a biblical sense, in the book of Proverbs, we can read that the Lord disciplines those he loves. And it says here, as a father, the son he delights in. God gives us rules in the commandments, if we look at that in such a way. And by following those, we are disciplining ourselves in our behavior. And when I think of discipline, that's what I'm looking at changing behaviors to a way that is acceptable, whether it's in your family, in your social life, a way that you're going to respect yourself as well as others. And that's what comes to, it was a long road around that highway to get to this thought. That is where I was trying to go, because there is importance in some form of discipline. That is the way that we set boundaries of what we will accept towards ourselves and what we should expect of ourselves as far as in respect for others. So it's a form of guidance. And I also see it as a form of growth, that if we have some form of discipline about ourselves, we know that we're not going to steal. We know that we're not going to lie. We know that we are going to treat each other with some form of respect. And I know growing up for me with my mom, she would always tell me that I needed to treat myself with respect and expect that same respect to be given to me, because I'm giving it to others. So that was a way of me disciplining myself and how I was treating myself and how I was treating others, that I wasn't just going half-cocked and just being totally rude and disrespectful to others or to myself, and then to expect that back. Yeah. So, even like I said with my kids now, when I was raising them, I was told that at that time I was, what did she call me? Something like a new era kind of parenting skills that was going on, because she said I was raising my children with opinions, which I felt was a wonderful thing and an actual compliment. Because even in the disciplining and telling them what they could and could not do, if they could come up with a reason to change my mind, if they could come up with some valid information on whatever situation it was that I did not know, and it might help me to change my mind, then they could do it with respect. Mm-hmm. But it was always a thing about respect. But I'm going to tell you, when I was in the grocery store just a couple of days ago, there was this little boy And he was standing there jumping up and down, screaming at his mother. And I believe even at his young age, if he knew a curse word, he would have used them. And his mother was telling him no about something. And she was trying to be very, very calm in this grocery store situation. And I understand that to be called, that they're calling it now, gentle parenting. Gentle parenting.
That's called.
And what did you say?
That's called being scared of your kids.
Well, she was talking to him in the most gentle kind of situation, kind of way, like little Johnny, no, you can't have that. I told you why. And Johnny wasn't having it. And he was just throwing himself down and having a bona fide fit. And I looked, and then you do that look away, because that was not my child. Now, I remember the boys being in, I may have told this story, that we were in a McDonald's and something, they were jumping up and down and playing, and I told them to stop.
Yeah, you told us that story.
Yeah, so I won't tell it again. If you haven't seen that story, you need to go back and watch all of our episodes till you find it.
It'll be within the last 10.
But, even in my classroom, because I did talk about being a teacher in my classroom, when I first started, after being all the book knowledge of becoming a teacher, I go into a classroom and I said, I want to do it just the way I did it. Children, line up at the door. The children in the classroom were screaming loud, very loud. And I was told in my gentle voice, this is how I was to get the children to line up. I said, children, line up at the door so that we can go outside. It's time for recess. Children, line up. No one was listening to me. And a teacher was passing by, a veteran teacher, and she said, what do you want them to do? And I said, I'm trying to get them to line up. She said, you better put some bass in your voice. I said, excuse me? I had the book knowledge, the current book knowledge. What are you saying to me? And she says, put some bass in your voice. And when I put bass in my voice, my children listened to me. And from that moment on, bass was in Miss Theresa's voice. And it got the children to listen and to follow the directions that I was trying to give them. So, I don't know. I've lost myself. Since jump in, I'll jump back in with you.
It was something you said that perked me a little bit, because I jotted it down, because you were talking about using discipline for change.
The Elaboration Room with two sisters of one. Make sure you like and subscribe, and stay tuned for the next episode every Monday at 6 p.m.